You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. I'm Samson Ladi Anyanini. Now, let me introduce my guest to you. My guest this morning in the studio, Martin Pebu. He's a private legal practitioner and a rights activist. It's been a long while. Thank you very much for making the time.
My pleasure.
Great. Also here in the studio is Abdul Malik Kweku Baako, editor-in-chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper. Thank you for joining us, Senior.
Yeah, thank you.
And he's our regular panelist. Also joining us via phone and via Zoom within the discussion, Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh, who is Executive Director of the CDD Ghana. Thank you for making the time, Prof. Hello, can you hear me, Professor Kwesi Prempeh? Okay, so let's get Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh fix his Zoom and ability to hear me. Also, Dr. Emmanuel de Graaf Johnson Owusu Ansa is Senior Lecturer, Department of Statistics and Actuarial Science, KNUST. We have Dr. John Osai Kwapong, who is political scientist and member, Aris Research Consortium. Thank you all so very much for making the time to join us here for this discussion. So, to put the discussion, we have structured the discussion into two: Martin Amidu versus the Jubilee House, and by extension, the government. We're asking, whose report do you believe? He brought in his resignation, a very tall letter, giving two major reasons why he has decided not to continue as the special prosecutor. The presidency accepted his resignation and then proceeded to offer explanations to every allegation that he made. Put all of those together. In fact, the presidency has also released, or like they would say, media has intercepted, has released correspondences between the presidency, the chief of staff, and Martin Amidu over the period of his tenure. So whose report do you believe? Martin Amidu or the presidency? Then he, before the resignation, had issued a statement in which he spoke about a number of things and has also firmed up the issues of his frustrations with pending cases that he's investigating. And this include the investigations regarding the Manasseh Azore documentary Contracts for Sale, concerning the corrupt activities leveled against the sacked PPA boss, Ejenim Boateng Ejay. So we are asking, is that the end of it? Because he's frustrated about it and now he's out, there will not be continuation of those cases. There are a number of the cases there. We'll list them to you. And whether there will not be further investigations and there will not be prosecution. He actually says some of the officers that were to do the job were compromised, including those seconded to his office were compromised. They were seeking to benefit from the investigations rather than do the job to prosecute in the name of the Republic. We now know from the OSP that he froze the accounts of Ejenim Boateng Ejay, and those frozen accounts indicate to us that the man who at the time of taking office had barely 40,000 Ghana cedis total in his private accounts. At the time when this trouble came upon him, he had populated those private accounts with as much as in excess of 40 million. From 40,000 to 40 million. So we'll ask those questions. Must it end here because he's been sacked? End of the story. He's been on some media outlet giving a defense. So we'll find out whether he's genuine responses. Now, shall we begin with Martin Amidu's resignation? And this is the resignation letter dated the 16th of November 2020. And in the resignation letter, he says, we actually want to read the resignation letter in full. He says, resignation of appointment as special prosecutor. Kindly refer, Your Excellency, to your letter with reference number, he quotes it, dated 30th January 2020, and hand-delivered to me in person on the 5th of February 2020, formally offering me appointment as the special prosecutor. So if you understand this, it means that all the while he had not been officially, properly so appointed. And that's the letter that is scrolling on your screen. So I also refer to my letter dated 17th February 2020, accepting Your Excellency's offer of appointment as the special prosecutor made in your said letter. The purpose of this letter is to convey to Your Excellency, Mr. President of the Republic, that pursuant to Section 13(8) and 10 of the Office of Special Prosecutor Act 2017, Act 959, and Article 145(3) of the Constitution 1992, I am resigning my position as a special prosecutor with immediate effect to enable Your Excellency to take steps to appoint a replacement to that position as required by law. The one condition upon which I accepted, so he's now giving reasons for his resignation. The one condition upon which I accepted to be nominated as a special prosecutor when you invited me to your office on the 10th of January 2018 was your firm promise to me that you will respect and ensure same by your government for an independence, for my independence and freedom of my action as a special prosecutor. Several things have happened since then, but your reaction to my letter with reference number, he gives it, dated the 16th of October 2020, which was delivered to you on the 19th of October 2020, conveying to you the conclusions and observations of the analysis of the risk of corruption and anti-corruption assessment of the Ejapa Royalties Limited transactions, convinces me beyond every reasonable doubt that you had labored under the mistaken belief that I could hold the office of the special prosecutor as your pujol. So that's number one. That the president had labored under the mistaken belief that he, Martin Amidu, would hold that office as the president's poodle. Look up your dictionary. Poodle. After receiving my under under reference on 19th October 2020, you ordered your chief of staff on 20th October 2020 to deliver an urgent message personally to me the same day. When she could not reach me on telephone, she decided to invite me in writing. In her letter with reference number so and so dated 20th October 2020, stating that, quote, I have been directed by His Excellency the President of the Republic to deliver an urgent message personally to you today, 20th October 2020. I am looking forward to seeing you as requested. End quote. I received the Chief of Staff's letter the next morning, 21st October 2020, and reported to her office as requested. The message she delivered to me was that you had instructed that I was not to do anything about my report on the Ejapa Royalties transaction until I had met you on Friday, 23rd October 2020. So note that the president had instructed that he, Martin Amidu, was not to do anything on the Ejapa royalties transactions until he had met the president subsequently. You were away in the Volta region when I met the Chief of Staff. I met Your Excellency in your office in the afternoon of the 23rd of October 2020, and I underscored the fact that my letter dated the 16th of October 2020 to you was sent out of necessary courtesy of prior information to your office as President of the Republic and the Commander-in-Chief responsible for national security. I also underscore the fact that the analysis of the risk of corruption and anti-corruption assessment was conducted professionally. It could not be reviewed by the Minister of Finance or yourself. And my letter was particularly not intended for you to direct me as to how to conduct the duties of my office. Your Excellency insisted that I should withhold any further action on the report for 1 week. So after meeting the president, he says this is what the president instructed, even after he told the president that the president or nobody was supposed to do anything about the report. He said the president insisted that he, Martin Amidu, should withhold any further action on the report for 1 week. He continues, I reluctantly agreed to your terms, but gave you notice immediately that I did not intend to continue as the special prosecutor because of your interference in the performance of my functions under the law. So do you know that? Because the president says so, reportedly, he decided and told him straight ahead that because of what you are seeking to do, I cannot continue to work as special prosecutor because of your interference. You eventually invited me to your office in the evening of Sunday, 1st November 2020, where I again asserted that I was not going to bargain over the independence of my functions as a special prosecutor. I refused to take the copy of the alleged comment from the Minister of Finance you offered me, as that would have compromised my independence as the special prosecutor. I also refused to shelve my report to enable you handle the matter, which explains my press release to the public on the morning of the 2nd of November 2020 and the follow-up with the distribution of the full 64-page Ejapa royalties transaction anti-corruption assessment report to the Republic. Unbeknown to you, that I had published the full 64-page report to the public, you caused a press statement to be made based on my letter dated 16th October 2020 to you under reference, which sought to politicize and downplay the seriousness of the professional analysis of the risk of corruption and anti-corruption assessment reported by my office. It thus became abundantly clear to me that I cannot continue under your government as a special prosecutor because we disagree on the non-partisan independence of the prosecutor in the performance of the special prosecutor, in the performance of the functions of my office, in preventing and fighting corruption and corruption-related offenses. The 64-page analysis of corruption and anti-corruption assessment report discloses several serious corruption and corruption-related offenses in respect of which I intended to open full investigations as a special prosecutor. I cannot do that now after your political interference in the performance of functions of the office for 2 weeks from the 20th of October to the 1st of November 2020, culminating your directives on how the anti-corruption assessment report of the Ejapa Royalties Limited transaction by this office should be handled by the principal suspects disclosed by the anti-corruption assessment report. More importantly, Your Excellency was acting as a judge in your own cause in usurping my functions to take any independent follow-up actions on the anti-corruption assessment report when you knew from my 13-page letter of 16th October 2020 conveying the conclusions and observations of the Anti-Corruption Assessment Report to you that negative anti-corruption assessment had been made against the conduct of your office in the procedure adopted in granting the executive approval dated the 24th of March 2020 and your assent of the Minerals Income Investment Amendment Act 2020 on the 27th of August 2020 intended to retroactively impact the parliamentary approval of the transaction documents granted on the 14th of August 2020. Pages 31 to 33 and 52 to 53 of the full 64-page report submitted to you on the 2nd of November 2020 contains the detailed anti-corruption assessment on these matters. The totality of the foregoing interventions by you in my functions make my position as a special prosecutor untenable. So now he gets to conclude. I had also stated at my vetting for approval by Parliament on the 13th of February 2018, which was broadcast to the whole world, that the Office of the Special Prosecutor will be innovatively operationalized and run effectively and efficiently in accordance with international best practice to be able to achieve its objectives of preventing, investigating, prosecuting corruption and corruption-related offenses and recovering assets of corruption. Unfortunately, by July 2020, I had not been able to have an office staffed by independently recruited and impartial staff operating within a credible institutional culture of anti-corruption to achieve the mandate of the office. This was the undertaking I made to Parliament and the people of Ghana on oath during my vetting for approval for Parliament, for appointment. The whole proceedings of my vetting for approval for appointment is still available online, and I am most disappointed to listen to it years down the line. So remember, the first leg of his reason for resigning is interference from the presidency in the Ejapa royalties corruption risk assessment he did for quite a period. That the president was also seeking to be a judge in his own cause, which is a fundamental principle of law that ought not be breached. We will later refer Martin Amidu to his own principle. The main principle is the rules of natural justice, and it has two legs. You do not condemn a man without hearing him, and you do not constitute yourself to a judge as a judge in your own cause. He said the president was doing the second part. Now, the second part of his complaint or reason for resigning, he says, is about the operational administrative, requirements, setting up the office fully and operationalizing it. The compulsion to use a limited number of seconded staff in a 3-bedroom and boys' quarters accommodation undermined the achievements of the objects of the office and my undertaking on oath before Parliament. One cannot seriously continue to prevent and fight corruption by depending on seconded staff of a 2-year duration, renewable for another year, who are looking forward to and or over their shoulders to returning to their main employers, who consequently may have more influence over them than the special prosecutor under whom they are supposed to work. I am most grateful for every assistance and support Your Excellency, Mr. President, offered me since my appointment on the 23rd of February 2018. Regrettably, our wishes have not materialized during Your Excellency's first term in office for obvious operational and political reasons. And we now fundamentally disagree on a non-partisan professional approach to the prevention of corruption and fighting corruption to make it a high-risk enterprise for public officers. I also do not see any serious non-partisan prospect of any improvement in preventing and fighting corruption in Your Excellency's next term of office in 2020. In 2021, he seems to be assured that the president will win. My view has always been that if I cannot assist Your Excellency, Mr. President, in a non-partisan professional way to prevent corruption and to fight corruption, I should not hurt Your Excellency by continuing to occupy the position of the Special Prosecutor. It is essential for me to state, for the purposes of the records and contrary to public perceptions, that my appointment letter was received on the 5th of February 2020, almost 2 years after my appointment. The copy addressees made no efforts to honor any of the conditions of appointment in terms of emoluments and benefits of the appointment ever since my warrant of appointment was issued on the 23rd of February 2018 to the date of this letter of resignation. I accepted your offer on the 10th of January 2018 to be nominated the first Special Prosecutor because Your Excellency, Mr. President, and the Ghanaian people knew I have been a non-partisan anti-corruption crusader all my life and not an anti-corruption entrepreneur. Okay, I have just 2 paragraphs to finish, but my production tells me that we may have to end it here. If we have to read the last 2 paragraphs, we will do so. But that's the bottom line. The presidency issued a letter accepting his resignation, and then subsequently issued another letter giving a tall list of reasons and explanations to the accusations that Martin Amido has made. In our discussion, we shall be looking at each of the heads of the allegations and the responses from the presidency. Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh, thank you once again for joining us. Please unmute yourself, sir.
I just did.
Thank you very much. What do we say about Martin Amido's resignation?
Well, I mean, that's a choice that he made based on his understanding of the circumstances that he felt confronted with. I think, you know, in a sense, a lot of this public drama, I think, could have been avoided if things were done in their right sequence at the right time. You know, why do I say that? So you take the establishment of the office, and I think, you know, what this reveals is that we take certain small things for granted, and then they blow up into something big. I mean, what would it take, for example, at the time of his appointment to just deliver his appointment letter to him? Then he would have no reason to make any fuss of the fact that he got his appointment letter 2 years after he had been sworn into office. I mean, once he's sworn in, one would assume that he's been appointed. I mean, the appointment is effective as of that date. And, you know, what would it have taken to have gotten the letter to him at that time? Some of these things are totally avoidable. But I think the larger issue in terms of the establishment of this office, so there are 2 issues here. For me, the establishment of the office and then the initiation of this corruption risk assessment. On the establishment of the office, I think, you know, what is a bit baffling is if this is how we go about establishing offices, then we need to just sit back and appraise the whole process, because, you know, establishing an office for me looks like a project. You know, you are managing a project. It has different timelines. It has, you know, different sequences. One of which, you know, once you get over the statutory part, the legislative part, you pass a law. you have to, of course, anticipate that if it's an office, it's going to have certain things. There has to be a building. All of these things need to be sorted out. I do not think it is proper practice to actually appoint a person to an office and then let that person, no matter who that person is, actually, be the one doing the legwork of finding places and stuff like that. It just doesn't, that process is a bit baffling to me. I have heard it said that, well, but you know, if you know Amidou, then how can you find an office for Amidou? I mean, he has held public office before. When he walked into the Attorney General's department in those days, I don't think he said, hey, you know, I need to make my own office or I need to find my own. I mean, he could maybe have something to say about the furniture in his office or maybe some kind of, you know, curtains or whatever. But he walked into something that was already a going concern and he didn't have much say as to what he wanted to do. If you felt that there were some security concerns or things that somebody might raise about, you know, the security of the office, that could be done after the fact. You have a person, you deliver an office, then the person maybe raises some questions about, okay, you know, we have to secure the space. So just for the integrity of the thing, let us have maybe some security people clear this place to make sure it's not bugged. You know, if you have those concerns, those can be addressed after the fact. But this whole business of appointing somebody to an office that's supposed to take effect as of the time of the appointment and then spend all of this time going through logistics and stuff like that, I think was avoidable.
But this will not be the first time that is happening. We know that this is almost like usual.
I think it doesn't speak well of the process. I mean, it's a bit. That's why I say it's a bit baffling. If this is how we set up offices, and because of we are in this habit of setting up a lot of statutory offices. If this is how it's done, then it doesn't really bespeak a very kind of, I mean, then the bureaucracy around this needs some reform. I mean, it is improper. Depending on the nature of the office, there may be certain security concerns about certain offices. So
with his years, with his years of experience in public office, Martin Amidou would be familiar with this bureaucracy. The Right to Information Commission, just a month ago, was commissioned. Was inaugurated, but as we speak, they are doing the same thing, looking for an office, and may take them a year or so before they get an office. So Martin Amidou would have known about this. Why should it be different in his case?
Well, but I'm not even sure that what we're describing is a bureaucracy. It's not bureaucracy in terms of red tape, but I think that there has to be a standard process that is in place for how these things are rolled out. And if that standard process happens to be what we're witnessing, then it calls for reform. You cannot have this process where the person appointed to set up, to run an office, you know, then becomes the person going about, you know, buying things and sorting things out and doing it. In fact, in the operation of the office itself, you know, you see that it was anticipated, you know, that if you did not separate the prosecutorial job from the administrative part of the job, you might have a situation where in our culture, you have a person who has been given a particular function, but who then spends all their time doing the admin work. So in the statute, an office of the administrator is created for that purpose, for the day-to-day running of that office. I think that that same logic ought to operate here when you are setting up the office, that you don't let the person who you've appointed as a prosecutor be the one going about finding the office, doing all of those things. Sure, they will have a say-so because of the nature of the office. They should have a say-so in some of these matters, security and all of those things. But all that time wasted setting up the office was unnecessary. But I think
while the presidency suggests, or rather states, that that was his job, and he should not rather blame it on the presidency, including the recruitment of staff, you seem to suggest we definitely would know that Martin Amidou's integrity and credibility is not in doubt. But his conduct in this regard, with regards to the operational difficulties he refers to, when you read the response from the presidency, does it speak well of him?
Well, I think, I mean, when you look at what's going back and forth, I think definitely there is blame, to be shared on both sides. I mean, I don't even understand, all of the burden that he took upon himself to do these things. I don't understand why he himself would do that. It should be seen as a project. You deliver a done deal, or at least partially done deal, but you don't just pass a law and then appoint the guy, and then the guy is the one who's running around doing these things. I don't know why he himself took it upon himself to be the one going around looking for offices. It seems it's quite unseemly to me that you would do that. It's not even part of, even in his office, then maybe the admin person should have been doing that. The administrator should have been the one, actually, if anybody would do the legwork, why should it be Hamidu doing the legwork?
So Martin Hamidu himself should have elected to delegate that responsibility rather than combining his job as an investigator, a litigant, and an administrator.
Oh,
is that what you're saying?
I mean, why should that be his business? I mean, why is he spending time doing this kind of stuff, right? When in fact the real job is there. But I think, I'm not, I don't think we should belabor, this first point too much. I think the crux of this matter, though, for me, is this whole thing about the corruption risk assessment. And I think, again, the sequence of events.
Hello, Prof.
Yes.
Prof, hold on briefly for me.
Yes, I'm here.
I want to come to my guest in the studio and return to you to look at that other leg of the discussion, because I think the operational issues are very important to discuss as well.